Hello, welcome to Clear Vision, where today I'm going to be exploring a topic that might be affecting many of us without us even realizing it. Self-gaslighting. I'm going to dive into what it is, what we do, why we do it, and most importantly, how to overcome it. So if you've ever doubted your own thoughts or feelings, this video may be for you. First, need to define self-gaslighting. Gaslighting is a term that's usually associated with manipulation in relationships, normally with narcissists, where one person makes another doubt their own reality. I'm going to put a video up here about this because I did do one on narcissistic gaslighting, so you'll be able to understand self-gaslighting as well. Self-gaslighting, however, happens when we do it to ourselves. And it's when we doubt our own thoughts, feelings, or perceptions, not when someone else is doing it, when we're doing it to ourselves. For example, have you ever felt upset about something and then told yourself, I'm just overreacting, or it wasn't that bad? That's self-gaslighting. Now, obviously, you need to assess the situation to be able to validate those kind of statements that you're telling yourself. But what we often do is we invalidate our own experiences and convince ourselves that our feelings aren't valid. So we justify someone else's behavior. That's often what we do. We justify it and don't acknowledge our own feelings about it. So we kind of self-gaslight. So I'm going to give you some examples of some common gaslighting phrases and thoughts that we tell ourselves. Doubting your own feelings. Let's go with that first. I must be overreacting. It wasn't that bad. Maybe I'm just being too sensitive. You could question your memories as well. I don't think that happened the way I remember it. I probably imagined it. It couldn't have been that serious. I've known domestic violence victims to do that as well. No, it wasn't that bad. He wasn't that bad. They weren't that bad. And you're beginning to gaslight yourself. Because what does that mean? What's the knock-on effect of that? That you somehow allowed yourself to be abused. You know, that's kind of a harsh thought. So it's easier to gaslight yourself, play the whole situation down. Therefore, you're not a victim. Therefore, because they weren't that bad, it was just situational. Invalidating your own experiences. Other people have it worse, so my problems aren't that important. You should never compare tears, and that's not a gaslighting phrase, but you should never compare tears. You can't. I shouldn't be upset about this. It's not a big deal. Blaming yourself excessively is another one. So it's my fault. Things went wrong. I always mess things up. I always do this. I must have done something to deserve this is another one. You can also minimize your own achievements. So, for example, anyone could have done that. It's not a big deal. I didn't really do anything special. You can second guess your own decisions. I always make the wrong choices. I can't trust myself. Often we do this with relationships. Oh, I've done that again. I always pick the wrong person, blah, blah, blah. Maybe I should just go along with what others say is another one. You can neglect your own needs. I shouldn't need help. I should be able to handle this on my own. A lot of people do that, especially if they're not used to help or they don't like to ask for it. And it's like, actually, sometimes we all need help and there's no harm in asking for it. I need a bit of help and support here. My needs aren't as important as everybody else's. Again, something else you're probably taught from childhood or a young age. Internalizing criticism. They're right. I am too difficult to deal with. I am too sensitive. I do take everything personally. I am too negative. I must be the problem if everyone keeps saying the same thing. Now, I would kind of say on that one, if 3 people tell you something about yourself and it's the same thing, you might want to look at it, but you don't necessarily need to gaslight yourself about it. So these patterns of gaslighting can all stem from various sources, such as past trauma, invalidation or internalized societal messages that you've picked up and introjected and internalized. And why do we do this? There are several psychological reasons rooted in theories such as those proposed by Melanie Klein, where she goes on about the paranoid schizoid position. You can take this over into the self-gaslighting. We split our experiences into good and bad without integrating them, which leads to a fragmented sense of self. When we encounter distressing emotions or thoughts, we might label them as bad and try to dismiss them or invalidate them as a form of self-protection. And this often results in self-gaslighting as we deny the validity of these bad parts of ourselves. And there's another way that we do this. Klein goes on about I'm all good, you're all bad, I'm all good, which is the idea of the paranoid schizoid position. I mean, this comes way back from good breast, bad breast. Mother's all good, and she's not attending to my needs, so therefore I must be all bad. Or mother's all bad, and she's not attending to my needs, so therefore I must be all good because she's bad. So we tend to do this with other people. So like I say, it's justifying other people's behaviours to the point of gaslighting ourselves about it. They're all good, so therefore I must be all bad. This is where the Kleinian stuff sort of kicks in, and this is something that happened in childhood where we didn't really begin to realize people can be ambiguous, or ambivalent, ambiguous, ambiguous figures in our lives, and understand the grey areas of people and their dynamics and their behaviours, and those within ourselves as well. Low self-esteem and past trauma can also play crucial roles. So if we've experienced criticism or dismissal of our feelings in the past, we may well internalise these messages, leading us to question our own reality. Again, this is like the interjection of the critical voice. This is that same thing. We're taught to question our own realities, and our own feelings are dismissed, and we begin to interject that, and then this becomes part of our continuing behaviour and our thought and our kind of like internal dialogue, where we just dismiss ourselves instantly. Equally on this, social and cultural factors further contribute to this behaviour. So society often pressures us to conform to certain norms, making us doubt our genuine reactions and feelings. And we might think, if everyone else is okay with this, then why am I feeling this way? Which leads us to question and then invalidate our own experiences because we roll with the masses. Yeah, this often happens in relationships as well. Everybody else thinks they're really great. Why is it just me who doesn't? But obviously you've got a different dynamic going on. So you then think that they're okay because everybody else says they're okay. So you kind of gaslight yourself. Some signs that you might be gaslighting yourself. Do you frequently second guess yourself? Do you often feel overly responsible for conflicts, thinking it's always your fault? Do you downplay your achievements, thinking they're not a big deal? These can all be indicators of self-gaslighting. So take a moment to reflect on your behaviors and thoughts. Recognizing these patterns is the first step towards overcoming them. Because there is an impact to self-gaslighting, and it can be quite a significant impact on your emotional health, your mental health. It can lead to anxiety, depression, and a distorted self-image. When we constantly doubt ourselves, we are actually undermining our confidence and our self-worth, which then also affects our relationships. So self-gaslighting can cause increased conflict and decreased trust, as we might become overly apologetic or defensive. It's essential to understand these impacts in order to motivate us towards change, because now we can actually see it. Maybe you need to write this down. Maybe you need to make notes of this to actually see, this is what I'm doing. This is what I'm doing to myself. So on that note, how do we overcome gaslighting? Here are some practical strategies and some tips. First, practice self-compassion. Always practice self-compassion. Speak to yourself with kindness, and it's not woohoo stuff. But a lot of us speak to ourselves pretty harshly, more so than we would do, a stranger in public. And we treat a stranger in public with more respect than we do ourselves. It's fine to be critical with yourself. It's fine to analyze your behaviors. It's great to look at that and self-reflect, but not to pull yourself down and drag yourself down and devalue yourself. You can use affirmations to reinforce your worth. And by that, I don't mean staring in the mirror and telling yourself you're a good person. That's kind of doesn't really work. It's a bit lame. But, affirmations to look at your achievements, look at how you handle situations, step back from certain situations and analyze them with a different eye. Maybe decenter the subject. So take yourself out of it and put your sister there, your brother there, your child there, your parent there, a best friend there, and then analyze the situation. And what would you say? And this can be like, oh, okay, I'm gaslighting myself. I'm devaluing myself in order to kind of justify someone else's behaviors, because actually not justifying their behaviors might lead to confrontation, might lead to, I have to get them out of my life, and then I don't know what to do with that. I might feel lonely, I might feel abandoned, I might make the wrong decision. So it's better that I just kind of gaslight myself. You can keep a journal. Like I said, this can be really helpful. Write down your experiences and your feelings and validate them, look at them. Seek feedback from trusted friends, or even go and see a therapist, run it through with a therapist who can offer an outside perspective. That outside perspective is sometimes really, really useful. And educate yourself about cognitive distortions and challenge negative self-talk. So this is going back to that inner critic. Understanding concepts like Klein's integration of good and bad parts of the self can also be beneficial. It can be shadow projections as well. And remember, it's a process and a progress that takes time. So you need to be patient with yourself. So, like I said, if you find yourself asking people, overly apologizing in situations, right, are you angry with me? Are you angry with me? Have I done something wrong? You're already self-gaslighting before you realize it. You may not have even come to a conclusion, but you've done it kind of very quickly in your thoughts. You are thinking you are in the wrong somehow. You might be perceiving something that's not there. It can literally twist reality that much or distort your view of reality that much. Sometimes I work with this with people who've experienced childhood abuse and trauma, and they kind of believe it was them, as a child. Oh, well, it must have been me. There must have been something wrong with me. There still is something wrong with me because, the patterns continued and things like that. And then when you kind of work with them, or when they come to realize, well, hang on, I was a child. And sometimes it can be as simple as pointing out what that person did to you, what your parents did to you, or what that person did to you, or what that ex-partner did to you or something, was abusive. That was abuse. That was toxic. And they go, so it wasn't me. No, it wasn't you. But you've been gaslighting yourself all this time. And like I say, self-gaslighting is also, can be a learned behavior or something we're taught because we're devalued by other people. So again, this is part of that inner critical voice going round, which I did a video about a while back. I'm going to put it up here, where we learn to begin to become our own critics. And then we move on from that and we gaslight ourselves. And remember, gaslighting is to distort your own reality. Yourself. You don't need anybody else doing it. You're going to do it yourself. It's when you doubt your own thoughts, feelings, or perceptions. So, like I said, you walk away from situations, taking all the blame, taking full responsibility, justifying someone else, letting other people off the hook, allowing people to transcend your boundaries, seeing things that aren't there, perceiving situations in a light that's not there. Your perception becomes distorted, and it's driven by psychological, social, and cultural factors that can significantly impact your mental health and relationships. But again, recognizing it, working with it, noting how it's affecting you, treating yourself as someone worth treating well, someone worth treating with love, are the steps that you need to take in order to move away from self-gaslighting, because it can be a really, really debilitating process to do, thought process to do to yourself. I hope that helps. It is a very, very brief overview of self-gaslighting. And until I see you next time, please take very good care of yourselves. Adios.